I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody? It is Tuesday. Week 3 is in the books. We had not a good game last night.
Not a good game.
Not at all what we were expecting. But me and Matt are here today. We're going to recap that Monday night. I cannot talk again today. We're going to recap the Monday Night Football game between the Chiefs and the Ravens. Go over some of your waiver wire targets. I'm going to slow down. And then we're going to call it a day. Should be a nice, easy episode. We got some playoff baseball rolling right now. It's what I have going on in the background. I'm excited to catch up on all the games today. How you doing today, Matt?
Well, just bracing for the Brett Rippon era, which starts on Thursday, and for the forthcoming 3-hour show, since you said it was going to be nice and light.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's probably a bad thing. No, Dennis isn't here. We should be good. We'll be able to get out of here pretty quickly, I would think. I guess before we get into the Monday Night Football game, we should probably talk about the news that's just like blowing up Twitter right now with the COVID testing. So 3 players I know from what I saw earlier, I believe it was 3 players for the Titans tested positive and 2 coaches, correct? It was 5
coaches.
5 coaches.
8 personnel.
Gotcha. For Titans, but no one as of earlier had tested positive for Minnesota. Yeah. Tennessee then decided they're going to shut down, or the NFL told them they're going to shut everything down till Saturday, which is interesting to say the least.
But said they're still playing the game.
Yeah, and the news that just came across as we were getting ready to record here was that Tennessee has put 3 players on the COVID IR. So I'm assuming all 3 of those guys that unfortunately tested positive are going on the IR. Still nothing as of right now for Minnesota about players testing positive, but a lot of the medical people have been pointing out that due to this kind of happening so late yesterday, we could not see any positive test pop up really till tomorrow. So don't hold your breath, I guess, on the Minnesota side. But interesting, I guess. I mean, we've kind of seen this already happen on the college side. Baseball, basketball, a little bit different just due to, I don't want to say basketball, you're still fairly physical and touching in nature with the way you're going to hit on guys and everything. That sounded bad. When you hit up against guys going up into the basket and everything, baseball, you really do. There's not as much touching in baseball to other people. Basketball, if you caught it, which they did the bubble scenario anyway. So I think after really those first couple
baseball may not have as much physical contact, but they sure as heck had the biggest problems. But
well,
I mean,
you
look at that. There was a lot of talk that would the Marlins, the Cardinals ever be able to finish the season? At least one of them is in the playoffs. I think they were both
Marlins. I think actually both are Marlins and Cardinals.
The Cardinals are in.
They are. Yes.
They finished. They figured out how to play their 60 games. They figured out how to get it going. NFL doesn't want to move either game, but if they end up having to, they said one of them could shift to Monday night. Just end up with a Monday night doubleheader. So we'll have to see how it goes. It was, if you thought we were never going to have this situation during the NFL season, you were fooling yourself, because we were not going to go the whole season and not have some kind of an impact. It seems like they're doing the right thing, trying to shut down kind of the organization facilities, keep everyone isolated till they can figure out who has what, and then look to bring it back in, just to add it to another of what's been kind of a strange season.
Yeah.
Tennessee, I think, is playing. So two really
Pittsburgh.
fascinating games because they're playing Pittsburgh, which are two really good teams. They're both 3-0, could have playoff implications. On the other side, the Vikings get to play the Texans, two 0-3 teams that just need a spark of joy. So we'll have to see. I would think if all the Vikings come back clean, they'll probably open up again midweek. A lot of times, these teams that played on Sunday that are going to play on another Sunday don't actually start practices until Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So they're kind of in what would be an off day anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's fair to say, as much as I hate to say this, if them not practicing 2 days going to hurt them that much? I mean, we know that they're not doing a lot of fully padded practices right now. It's mostly walkthroughs. So it's obviously going to hurt them some in the game. I honestly think if they're not going to open it up until Saturday, they should just push the game to Monday night if they already know that they're going to not allow Tennessee to open until Saturday. If that's something where, whether it's no more tests come back positive or anything, it just ends up being they can't open up until Saturday. They should still push the game till Monday night just to give Tennessee a chance to kind of get some game plan stuff. And obviously, they did the social distancing stuff through the offseason with everything going on. You can still do stuff, but still being able to go through walkthroughs and everything is going to be huge, especially when, as you mentioned, they are going up against a good team in Pittsburgh who is going to be able to at least do walkthroughs and everything all week long planning for you. So I agree. It's something we kind of expected was going to happen. It's not something you could just assume was not going to happen at all season.
At least the game is at Tennessee. That's what I just looked up. Yeah. So they wouldn't have to travel. I would think if there's a shutdown, I believe the Vikings are on the road. That would be kind of a bigger deal to me. I don't actually see them on. Yeah, the Vikings are on the road. So I would think that would be a little bit more of a challenge if you can't get together and stuff, because then when you finally do come together, it's for travel.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We obviously don't know who the players are right now. We likely won't know. If they're anybody fantasy relevant, you won't probably know until Sunday or Monday when the game is, because that's when you'll find out they're not playing. They don't have to release that to us, nor do I think they should have to. That's,
I think the players that went on COVID IR are the players that tested positive.
Yeah, did they list the players though? I don't think. Oh, did they? I didn't see.
They listed the names. They were all reserve defenders.
Gotcha. So, I didn't see the list. I was kind of paying attention. All I saw was that the three players and the 5 coaches. I didn't see any actual names get attached to it. So that's why I was like, I don't know if that's really going to be that big of an issue. So it's something to watch and monitor. I mean, I'm in a Discord for another group, and there's a bunch of people in there like, all right, here we go. NFL is going to shut down. They're not shutting down, people. Stop it. College didn't shut down. Basketball, as you mentioned, baseball had it much worse. Although, again, what I was going to say is baseball did that to themselves, though, by the Miami Marlins players all going out to a strip club the night before. And then St. Louis, same thing. They all went out to a party at a bar. And that's what started all of them getting sick. So they did that to themselves, where it doesn't sound like that was the issue here. It just kind of happened due to them interacting with certain people. So you had to expect it to happen. Luckily, I mean, I don't want to say this luckily because people obviously got COVID. Fantasy-wise, it sounds like it's not going to be anybody you have to worry about pulling out of your lineup. We'll obviously keep you updated with that. But as of now, nothing to freak out about because we don't know for sure what is going to happen. It looks like, though, for sure, Minnesota, Houston is on for good, and Tennessee at worst will be moved till Monday.
They listed the Tennessee Titans 3 players: starting nose tackle Daquan Jones, long snapper Bo Brinkley, and reserve tight end Tommy Hudson.
Sounds like guys on the either field goal team or special teams.
Well, so it turns out that they had a linebacker, Stephen Bowen, who had been put on COVID IR just prior to this game. So not sure if now they're seeing positive tests that, was in that position group. But special teams would definitely be a thought there. If you have a reserve tight end, reserve linebacker, the long snapper, those would be guys that would be on the special teams unit in the start. So it's not great, but you didn't see Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill on there. So, you have to see impact. Again, you're probably right. Like tomorrow, Wednesday, is where I'd be watching for tests, because if they have a bigger problem, it's going to start to seep out then.
Yeah. If we end up sitting here on Thursday's show talking about how 15 Vikings and 20 Tennessee, then there's going to be an issue. Then at that point, I would think games are going to be postponed. They're not going to be canceled. Games will be postponed. They will be moved.
I think if you get into the double digits, you're talking that they definitely will postpone just for competitive balance. The NFL wants competitive balance the same way baseball does.
Yeah,
and they'll
exactly.
figure out how to squeeze it in. It's more of an interesting question. So, baseball, they were playing almost every day, and their solution was to do some doubleheaders. Doubleheader, not really a viable option for the NFL. What we haven't really ever gotten from the league beyond pushing a game to a Monday or a Tuesday, which is something we've seen in the past when there have been weather issues or stadium issues, is what would you do? We can look, but if those two teams don't have a common bye week, you can't. We had that one time. There was two teams that were supposed to play in Florida that had a common bye week, and it just, their bye ended up being week one. I think it was Miami and Tampa Bay, or Tampa Bay and Carolina, something like that. Because of the hurricane, their bye ended up being week one, and they got pushed back. There aren't, with the structure of football, it becomes more of a question of how you make that game up. And again, maybe not so much Minnesota and Houston unless they have a dramatic turnaround, but you would think Titans, Steelers could have a major impact on potential playoff seeding.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of, and again, I don't know how easy this would be, is if it becomes so bad, you're going to have to make those four teams their bye week this week and figure out a way to change the schedule somewhere on the back end. But again, I don't know how. You're likely, if that happens, you're talking about massive changes to the schedule and it all coming quickly. So we're obviously hoping that doesn't happen. But again, this is not something where the game is going to be canceled. There's just no way. I hate to say it this way because I know it sounds bad, but the NFL is too full of themselves and has too much of an ego to watch all these other sporting franchises, teams, everything, all these other sports go through their seasons with no issues. I mean, again, baseball had their issues. They never canceled any games, though. They just postponed them, and they made them all back up. No way is NFL going to sit back and let that happen. Same thing with college.
They have to have considered it. I mean, the NFL has to have considered what would happen. They've already, obviously, we saw this year, they already moved to expand the practice squad to change the IR rules to make it much easier to travel your own players up. So I would say there's probably a certain threshold at which they say a team has suffered too much to be considered competitively viable.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. Let's move on. Monday Night Football, which ended up turning out not really to be a game.
Speaking of not competitively viable.
Yeah. I mean, wow.
How about Lamar Jackson? Wow.
Hey, I mean, look, I'm not going to lie. I liked it. For two reasons. One.
So did my wife.
Yeah.
Now 2 full picks ahead. She asked a lot of questions this morning. So what is Chiefs won? I picked the Chiefs, right? Yeah. So where are we in the standings? Tied? I have a 1-point lead. You have a 2-pick lead. That's what I thought.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah. I'm going to say, like I said, anytime the Ratbirds lose, I'm a happy man. And on top of that, even though I believe it was still kind of close at the end of halftime, like the Chiefs looked by far and away the best team, and just went to sleep. I was like, you know what? Yeah. It's an early night for me. There's no point in staying up anymore. So I went to sleep.
I bailed out near the end of the third quarter too, because it was 27-10. And, aside from that kickoff return for a touchdown, which really has nothing to do with the offense, the Ravens just weren't able to make any headway. And Patrick Mahomes probably spent all weekend reading about Josh Allen and Russell Wilson, so hold my beer.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is thanks a lot, Baltimore, because I just needed Patrick Mahomes to score less than 40 points so I could win my matchup, and that didn't happen. So thanks for that. I really appreciate it. It felt kind of safe. And like my one main dynasty league, I was like, you know what? 48 point. I had like a 48-point lead, and he had Mahomes and Tucker. And I was like, all right, it's going to be close, but I feel like I'm probably going to win it. And then by like the time the second quarter started, I looked at my score, and he had already jumped up to like 135. I was like, yeah, it's over with. Never mind. And I really can go to bed because I ain't got to worry about nothing here. But Mahomes, huge day. What was it? 385 through the air, 4 touchdowns in the air, and 1 on the ground. He gets you 40 points in fantasy, comes in as QB1. CEH, while he doesn't do a lot on the ground, just 64 yards, does get you 70 yards on 5 catches to come in his running back 12 with 18 points. Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 12 with 21 points, 77 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown. And, of course, like everybody projected, Mecole Hardman to have a big game here. 81 yards, 4 catches, and a touchdown as well. Coming with 18 points. Travis Kelce, 14 points, coming in as tight end 5 with 87 yards on 6 catches. So Kansas City, we talked about it a little bit on Friday with Dennis. You know, we had some of these guys a little bit lower ranked, expecting it to be a good game, and the fact that Baltimore's defense was good, yet we knew you're starting everybody. And when I say you're starting everybody, Mahomes, Hill, CEH, Kelce, those guys are in your lineups every single week. Hardman, this is delivered. Yeah, exactly. Hardman, so this is his second good game. He had a good game back in week 1. Now here, I think the most promising thing I'm taking out of this,
Watkins had a big game in week 1.
He did. Hardman got, what did he? I know he got a touchdown. I swore he got a touchdown. I know Watkins was the lead receiver. Did Hardman not do anything? Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he had a good week.
Marcus Robinson that had a good week 1.
Well, he dropped a pass in week 1. I was trying to pull it up.
I was worried about Mecole Hardman.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. He got 6 yards, 1 pass for 6 yards. My bad.
Yeah.
He had 30 yards last week, but nothing to write home about. But what I was going to say with Hardman is the amount of time that he's been out there, I think you should, if you own Hardman in a dynasty league, you're looking forward to next year, because once Sammy Watkins is gone, I really think Hardman is going to get more involved in this offense. But I don't think you can expect a lot out of him this year. I still think it's going to be mostly Hill and Watkins and Kelce are going to be the guys, and Hardman's going to have these games. Like that one was just, from what I remember seeing, almost looked like a bust in coverage. Like he just got deep, and Mahomes shouldn't have completed that pass to begin with. Throwing it off of his back foot, like not at all, is bullshit. I hate Patrick Mahomes because he's so damn good. But yeah, for me, Hardman, I'm not using him much this year unless Hill or Watkins gets hurt. But I do think possibly starting 2021, Hardman could be an interesting piece to start using every single week.
I mean, my concern is it seemed like a lot of the talk last year was as soon as Demarcus Robinson is gone, look, then it'll open up some more for Hardman. And in the offseason, they went and signed Demarcus Robinson to a 1-year deal again, and then you see him on the field more than Hardman. There's something seems like just maybe is not clicking. I don't know. We talk all the time about a third-year breakout. Next year would be the third year, so it's possible it's just taking him a little bit longer to develop. But you're right. His touchdown was a 49-yard strike. Aside from that, he catches like 3 for 20-something yards. It's not incredibly reliable.
Yeah. Yeah, he's always going to be third, fourth fiddle. I guess you could say at least third, because assuming Sammy and Demarcus Robinson are gone next year and he becomes that 2, it's still going to be Hill, Kelce, and CEH first.
Yeah.
So he's going to be fourth. I'm sorry. So he's always going to be the fourth fiddle. So, but with this offense being as explosive as it is, it's almost like Deshaun Jackson-esque, right? Like Deshaun Jackson, even though he was the one on his team at times, you knew all it took is that one play for him to make your fantasy day. So he's always going to be that best ball guy. But I mean, on that offense, as a wide receiver 4 or 3, you might not. I mean, he might be the best option you have some weeks.
With the Chiefs, it seems like, Hill, Kelce, and then whoever their primary running back are the guys. And then there's always somebody else that potentially pops up when you have these higher scoring games. We've seen it be Watkins. We've seen it be Robinson. We've seen it be Hardman. We've seen it be a backup tight end we didn't know they were rostering. We've seen it be a 4th-string running back you didn't see happen. That's the concern for me. Outside of the 3 kind of dominant positions, unless you had an injury to Hill or an injury that knocks somebody out, even if Watkins and Robinson were gone, I don't know you could feel guaranteed that Hardman was going to be the guy. I need to see something consistent. We have not seen anything approaching consistency. We've seen a few flashes, and actually it almost reminds me more of Corey Davis, where through now 4 years prior to this, you've seen occasional games where he just goes out there and catches a bunch, and you're like, hey, we thought he was going to be a stud. He should be good. But then you go to start him and you get 2.1 points.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to start Hardman as we get into COVID and bipocalypse. I mean, there's one of the bye weeks in the middle of the season. 8 teams are on a bye with the injury situation now. I can't even imagine what the lineups are going to be setting ranking. I might need stiff drink before we have to go to 60 deep at wide receiver week 8.
On Baltimore's side here, I mean, they're definitely the more interesting team to talk about at the moment. And a lot of people have been pointing out today, and I do think it's a fair thing to say, seems like once a team gets up on Baltimore, they struggle to keep up offensively. We did see this last year. I talked about it in the offseason. When the Browns did this to them last year, even though Lamar ended up with good passing numbers throughout the game, he did not look good passing the ball or throwing the ball. He really kind of got a lot of garbage time against the Browns. Saw the same thing in the playoffs against Tennessee, and obviously every time so far against Kansas City, which Lamar has come out and admitted that they just seem to be their kryptonite. And again, I'm not trying to say Lamar Jackson is bad. Please do not take it that way. He's still top 5 quarterbacks at worst. I've had him at 5. I feel like I'm just proving my points a little bit now that he's a top 5 quarterback, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It is just one of those games because I'm also going to say, as much as that may be true, teams getting up on Baltimore that he may not be able to keep up, I don't think that's going to happen that often. So I feel like it's going to be kind of hard to keep that going. But Lamar, 97 yards and 1 touchdown in the air. He does get 83 yards on the ground, comes in with 14 points in this one, just comes in as QB 23. Outside of that, I mean, what the hell? I mean, as someone who owns Ingram in the Scott Fishbowl League, thinking, hey, it's going to be a decent RB2 for me all season long, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. 3 points in this one, running back 61. J.K. Dobbins comes in at RB 36 with 8 points. Devin Duvernay gets 8.7 points, comes in as wide receiver 49. That's not even counting the kickoff return touchdown if you have those big play bonuses and everything like Scott Fishbowl does.
Duvernay had to have made his points off because he only had 2 catches for 7 yards.
Okay, so I did. I just pulled this off Fantasy Pros a couple minutes ago, so maybe I did. Okay.
Credit.
Like I said, I honestly didn't.
So that would be his 6 points.
I didn't watch the whole second half, so I didn't know if he did something. So that's why I was pulling that up. But Marquise Brown, wide receiver 94 with 3.3 points, and then Mark Andrews, tight end 32 with 5.2 points. So go ahead.
It was interesting last night. They were talking about the kind of great quarterback matchups they've had on Monday Night Football, and they got to kind of the last one before they transitioned into Mahomes and Jackson, how excited they were going to be to see them for the next, potentially 10, 12 years. And it was Brady and Manning. And I thought it was very interesting. Brian Greasy, himself a quarterback, pointed out, it's only going to be this great rivalry if Jackson is able to start stepping up and equaling the task. And it reminded me a little bit, they're obviously radically different play styles on the field, but he reminds me a little bit of where we were early in the career in Peyton Manning, where, he puts up some great numbers. He's incredibly hard to defend. He has good teams, but sometimes in some of these big games, you just can't quite figure it out. And it took him a couple of years to get past New England, to get past kind of the hump in big playoff games, to get past some of these big marquee matchups and to start delivering. And, Jackson's only in the 3rd game of his 3rd season, his 2nd full year starting. But it does certainly seem like as Jackson goes, so goes the Baltimore offense. Like last week, they put up a lot of points, but it was thanks to defense, a couple of big plays. You didn't see big numbers for the Stars. Week 1, they were putting up a lot of points on offense. You saw it raises all the ships. It's hard for the passing pieces to get going when he had 83 on the ground, which is how he kind of gets to 14 points, but only 97 yards passing. And, of course, his touchdown in garbage time comes to Nick Boyle, who's probably not the guy that you're starting. If you had Kirk Andrews, you're just, you turn off the TV and cry into your pillow a little bit. But that's where I think the next evolution for Jackson. We've seen he can do some amazing and incredible things, but can you step up and take over this kind of a game or be equal? That's one thing I'll say that we have seen this couple weeks for Josh Allen that's been the most impressive is his team. On Sunday, the refs made a call that's very questionable. The Rams have a very good team. They went up on him. He didn't give up. He came right back and continued going. Jackson, in a couple of these times when they've really been challenged, you referenced the Brown game. I thought of the Tennessee playoff game where it didn't start the way they expected, or last night where they couldn't get a couple of things going, and then it just seems like they couldn't come back from that. That's something I think he needs to learn, and hopefully will learn if Baltimore wants to keep being competitive. I know you don't want them to be competitive.
No, I don't mind them being competitive. I mean, obviously, it's not something. When I first did that draft class was the very first time I ever started actually writing, studying players and ranking them. And it's funny, as you go back and look at it, I had Baker 1, Darnold 2, and then I had Allen 3, Lamar 4, Rosen 5. As I've talked about with you guys before, I just never believed in Josh Rosen, still don't. And I said in the article that I put out, I want to say it was Dynasty Guru is who I was writing for at that time. I said that I thought Allen and Lamar had the most upside of these two. If those two can ever get down passing, they're going to be unstoppable. I don't want Lamar to suck. I just get a little frustrated. Maybe some of it is the Browns homerism in me. I get a little frustrated sometimes when everybody talks about like he's the best quarterback we've ever seen. I'm like, pump the brakes. He's not. In my opinion, again, I did not watch the full game, so maybe things got better. But in the parts of the game that I watched, he missed some wide open wide receivers multiple times. He missed Marquise Hollywood-Brown on 2 would have been touchdown passes. That's my point. Mahomes doesn't miss that. Tom Brady doesn't miss that. Drew Brees doesn't miss that. Aaron Rodgers doesn't miss that. Now, I get that those are the best quarterbacks in the league right now, but that's who you guys keep putting Lamar with. That's been my biggest issue, is that Lamar has improved. He is definitely 10 times better than what he was when he started those 5 or 6 games there in the first season. And even he's already, I would assume, even better than what we saw out of him last year, but he's still not quite the passer I would think even he or the Ravens want him to be at this point. That's been my only argument against Lamar. Where we talked about yesterday, Allen has, whether it's just the way the offense is or the players that they brought in, he's completing 70% of his passes now. So he's slowly increased every single year his accuracy. I feel like Lamar, we've seen it, but it hasn't been quite to the steps that Allen has produced. That's always been my biggest issue. That's why I talked about this year. I had Lamar at 5 because I do think, while he's not easy to stop because nobody is as fast as him, he's extremely shifty for a quarterback. I mean, I think it was like the first or second play of the drive where he ran the ball for, what was it, like 40 yards?
30 yards, yeah.
I mean, like, Vic is the last quarterback we've seen to be able to do that. I think Lamar is faster and shiftier than Vic.
Like Michael Vick. Now that you're in the second full season, defenses are figuring out how
that was my point. That's what I was going to go
to. Up to that. You can't keep that going forever.
Yeah. And so that's what worries me, is that we see, again, I see a lot of Baltimore games because I'm watching. I always like to see what my rivals are doing and everything. And Lamar, I think he does get the benefit a lot like Mahomes does as well, where he starts moving around in the pocket, starts shifting outside, and defenders immediately start crashing down on him because they don't want him to get that big play. And it leaves a defender open. Well, the Chiefs didn't do that last night. The Chiefs didn't do that last year. And I think that's the biggest thing the Titans didn't do is, and I remember this because I watched the game with a bunch of friends and I kept talking about, I love how disciplined Tennessee stayed when it came to Lamar looking like he was going to run. They had defenders that knew it was their job to come after him. You didn't see the cornerbacks all of a sudden bailing off their wide receiver targets or anybody else. They stayed with their man, knowing that if they pulled off, they gave Lamar Jackson the easy completion 30, 40 yards down the field. And that's what we saw with Kansas City. It seemed like at times, like, you know what, that's fine. You want to run for 30 yards? You run for 30 yards. You're not beating us with your arm. We're not going to let you get in the end zone because now the field is smaller. It's constricted. You're not going to have that room to run around like you had earlier. And that's how you beat those guys. And honestly, that's how the Browns were able to get to them last year in week 4, because Myles Garrett and those guys, they didn't let Lamar go up the field on the outsides. They kept him contained. He had to go right up the middle, right into the teeth of that defense. The guys didn't bail off their receivers. So that's where I was going, and I agree with you. I think defenses now, they've had a full year and a half of tape now to watch on Lamar. You cannot. I understand he's amazing. Defensive coordinators are smart enough to figure out ways to maybe not stop you, but slow you down. And at this point, it seems like if they can figure out a way to slow down Lamar, it puts them almost in like this panic passing mode that I don't think Lamar can bring your team back from. That's what worries me a little bit. I still expect them to be one of the best teams in the league. They're going to win the AFC North. Lamar Jackson's going to be fine in the NFL and fantasy, but they're going to have to figure out ways to kind of combat the curves that defenses are now going to throw at them. Are you worried? All right, I would imagine you are worried. I don't know if you own Mark Ingram anywhere. How worried are you with Mark Ingram right now? This is 3 games in a row. He is not, even though he put up points in that second game, we talked about it. It was all came off that one big run he got toward the end of the game. He has not been that good this year.
Yeah, so I would say a big concern is they're now mixing in 3 running backs, basically, because we saw Gus Edwards come in early and be in there a lot. We saw Dobbins be in there a lot. They're also using, and when they're not incredibly high volume, or if they get a lead too quickly and end up in garbage time, he's not viable.
Yeah.
And then, I noticed they were using end arounds to Devin Duvernay. They got behind, so they had to throw more. That's not really his game. Jackson doesn't seem to use the running backs as pass catchers a whole ton. So I definitely think it's a concern. Really, to be honest, we thought running back for the Baltimore Ravens, any one of the 3 or maybe all 3 would have some good value this season. We haven't exactly seen it materialize. Dobbins had an incredible week 1 because of a couple of big touchdowns, but we haven't really seen that replicate on a consistent basis in the 2 weeks following. Edwards has steadily plugged away. I just don't think there's, they don't seem to have the same running game that they had last year. So it's definitely a concern, especially in a landscape where we've had a lot of injuries that have taken a bite out of people. They aren't suffering the injuries. It's just not super efficient.
Yeah, I talked about I have him in Scott Fishbowl. There's kind of nothing I can do at this point about it because Edwards and Dobbins are both owned. It's one of those things where if you're in a situation like I am, you just kind of have to ride with them, and it is what it is. But my only hope is that it's just early in the season. We've talked about this is still kind of in a way preseason for some of these NFL teams. Maybe they're going to start getting him more and more involved. But the fact that they've been using Dobbins as much as they have does worry me a little bit. I'm not as worried about Gus Edwards because we did see games last year even where Gus Edwards kind of came in and took a little bit of a run away from Mark Ingram. But the fact that they've moved to using Dobbins as well and moving and using that 3-back system like you talked about, yeah, that's as someone who has Mark Ingram, you can't even move him. It's not like he's had a couple good games either where you can start worrying about it. So yeah, it's bad. As for the wide receivers, I was Andrews first. Whatever, throwaway game. I know this has been 2 weeks in a row that he hasn't had a good game, but Andrews is going to be fine for me. And I do think with Hollywood Brown, it's just kind of what you have to expect from him, though. It goes a lot into the Mecole Hardman thing and really Tyreek Hill. We didn't talk about Hill, but Tyreek Hill as well. You just have they're just those guys that they're not going to get a lot of volume. They're big play wide receivers. And so when they don't get the big play, they're going to hurt you.
So I don't know if this will make you happy or not, but I just looked, and in ESPN standard PPR scoring, Lamar is now QB 12.
It does and it doesn't because he's definitely not going to stay there. But I think he has an even better chance of finishing at 5, like I told you guys. And again, I saved the receipts. I've made clips of you and Dennis laughing at me and calling me an idiot and shaming me live on the podcast just for when it happens, so I can make sure we can just play it on repeat over and over again. Didn't realize I just muted myself. So, do you have any thoughts on anything with the Ravens there? You want to move on to the waiver wire targets?
No, I mean, if you only throw for 97 yards, hard for the passers to have a good day.
Yeah. All right, so waiver wires, I mean, it's pretty desperate out there at the moment. There's really not a lot that we can talk about. We'll start with the QBs here. The biggest ones that I've seen available, just getting your thoughts on this. I try to go less than 50% because there's probably a good chance that these guys might be available. There is one name that's available in a couple of mine, and that's Wentz at 78%. I bring him up because he does have some big play potential, but obviously he's not looked that great this year. You got Baker Mayfield, who's sitting at 43%, Teddy Bridgewater at 17, Derek Carr at 19, Nick Foles at 3, and of course, your quarterback of the Denver Broncos, Brett Rippon, who is 0% owned at the moment. If you had to take a shot on any of these guys this week, say you need a quarterback, whether it's, injury, bad play, who would you take, and in what order would you rank these guys?
I'm curious what percentage you're seeing for Goff, because our friend
Goff.
Nick at the Fantasy Life app blog and his streaming QBs, he does a compilation of ESPN, Yahoo, NFL Fantasy, and a couple others. And Goff was his top streaming QB. And I know I saw Field Yates hit him as a top waiver wire pickup. He's actually QB9.
He's available, or he is rostered in 64% of leagues, according to this. So he's a little bit above the threshold. So, I mean, he is available. I would assume, obviously close to almost half leagues right there. So
I guess it depends on what platform you're on, because he's much less than 50% across ESPN, I guess.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm wondering, see, what makes it hard when you and I are looking at waivers is we're probably looking at some dynasty sites, and let's be honest, none of these people.
No, I'm looking at a redraft one. That's where I pull my stuff from. It's just a redraft.
So if Goff's there, I would take him. Of the guys you listed, boy, I'm not trying to get Wentz right now. I would say his ownership percentage probably went from the 90s to the 70s because of what we've seen. I've seen some people set him free. Baker, I don't know. If you had to, if I needed one for this week, I'd go with Foles.
I kind of think sneaky game from Baker this week. I'm not expecting it every week, but I do think they want to do that ground and pound offense, and I love it. It worked well for them this past week. I don't think they're going to be able to do that this week against Dallas. I think Baker's going to have to throw the ball a little bit. We've seen Dallas can be beat on the back end. I kind of think I'm not saying start Baker every single week, but I kind of feel like this is shaping up to be a good Baker week. So take that what you will, I guess.
Well, that's kind of why I liked Foles. They have the Colts coming in. That's not really a team that scares me. We saw Minshew have a pretty excellent day. If you're not the Jets, you could potentially be able to get something over on them.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what Brett Rippon can do. I in no way think that you should be going to pick him up. I would say that's the shortest of short-term solutions.
Yeah.
I thought Carr was going to do well last week and really didn't. They're still beat up in the receiver core, and I can't buy into Teddy. I guess it depends your level of desperation. Of that list, I would say you have a good point about Baker, and then I think Foles is going to want to show something stepping into the starting role. So,
yeah, for me it would be Baker and Foles. I mean, obviously Goff, if he is available, it said he's got 64%. So if you're lucky enough that he's sitting on your waiver wire, I would definitely grab him. He's a guy that we all expect to continue to put up good numbers. At the running back position, there is not a lot here. The biggest name one that I saw was Chase Edmonds, who's still only rostered in 37%. Obviously, he's kind of affected the same way that Drake is, and the fact that Murray runs the ball as much as he does. But if Drake goes down, I think Edmonds his value really shoots up. Not a guy you maybe can use every single week. Outside of that, the top guys are Jalen Richard, who is sitting at 2% ownership. LaMichael Pirine, 6%. God, I keep saying ownership. I shouldn't say that. Rostered. Rostered sounds better. Giovanni Bernard, 4% rostered. Brian Hill, who had the big game last week, 3% rostered. So
I looked at Hill's numbers.
Yeah.
So he had the first 2 weeks, he had 3 carries for like 11 yards, 3 carries for 14, and then he had 5 for 58, 49 of which was a touchdown. I'm not buying into that. Edmonds, so far he's averaging 7.7 points through his 3 games. He has about 23 total PPR points. Depends on how deep a league you are, how desperate you are as flex. He has some boom potential, but I think he has some bust potential. Geo actually might be the most interesting because it feels like they've started to mix him in more the last 2 weeks. He actually had the same amount of points as Joe Mixon last week. He seems to be getting back involved in the passing game. He's probably the one I would take a shot on of that group. I feel like Hill is the one people are going to gravitate to, and I'm not sold that that could very well end up being like what we saw with Hines, where he had 20-something points week 1 and 1.4 points week 2. Only I think Hines has a more definitive role.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going Bernard first, just like you talked about. He seems to be getting worked into this offense. He seems to have some sort of third down role. We saw it a lot in the Cleveland game as well. They really kind of brought him in there being behind in that one. I think if you're forced into some kind of emergency situation, Bernard can at least put points on the board for you. Yeah, he's not going to get you a 0. After that, I think the only 2 that I would really focus on would be Edmonds and P. Ryan. Edmonds, I mean, he has some value. We saw, I believe it was week 1 and even week 2, he put up some points. I don't think he did much last week, but he did something for you. But again, I think that's his value is closely tied to Kenyon Drake. As long as Kenyon Drake's playing, he's not going to have a whole lot of value. 2 seconds. Oh, I had to sneeze. Sorry. Anyways, last P. Ryan. I talked about him last week. With as bad as Frank Gore looked, I know they were using Kalen Ballage, and I know that the New York Jets are a complete and absolute dumpster fire. So I'm not telling you that P. Ryan is going to save your season. But McDonald, is it McDonald, right? Is that how you say his last name? McDougall?
McDougall, yeah.
McDougall. Okay, one of those things. Mick something, the Jets GM, and Adam Gase wanted P. Ryan. They took him, I believe it was a 4th or 5th round pick. They wanted to bring him into this offense. He's a guy that I think sooner rather than later is going to get some kind of run with the offense.
The Jets GM is Joe Douglas.
I don't know where McDougall well, I was close when I said Mick Douglas. I just wanted to make him sound a little bit cooler with Mick Douglas. Joe Douglas.
They have a McDougall on their roster. I'm gonna look, but it did sound familiar.
Yeah, they wanted P. Ryan again as like a last shot if you can grab him. I still don't think anybody's going to pick him up unless he goes off on the Broncos this week, which I'm not expecting. But he's a guy that I think could have some value later in the year because I just don't expect Frank Gore. I mean, he didn't look great Sunday to begin with. I can't imagine they're going to keep using him and Ballage.
Well, and Bell is eligible to come back off IR after this week. So that's something to watch out for.
Let's see.
Well, big reports out of New York are if the Jets don't win on Thursday night, like Gase is gone.
I'm not mad about it.
And Le'Veon Bell comes off the IR. How do you know player usage, rotation, anything is the same?
It's going to be interesting to see who becomes the interim head coach then. And who the offensive play caller is not going to bring somebody in. So my guess would be Greg Williams. I mean, he did it 2 years ago for the Browns. Why not have him come in and see if he can capture some of that same magic? Browns went on a nice little.
Greg Williams probably would end up being the head coach. But the other real question, if I'm a Jets fan looking at potentially getting a number 1 pick, do I want to cut Adam Gase loose after?
No,
because Greg Williams actually got that Browns team.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They went on a nice little winning streak. No, we talked about this yesterday. If I'm the Jets, I want them to suck. I'm trading Sam Darnold for a bag of peanuts if I can in the offseason and taking Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 pick because he's going to be good. At least I guess I can't say he's going to be good. I think he's going to be very, very good. On the wide receiver side, there's actually some interesting names on here. So T. Higgins is rostered in 6% of leagues. Scotty Miller is still only 16%, which is just confusing to me. Zach Pascal, 4%. Greg Ward, 1%. Isaiah Ford, 1%. And Dontrell Inman, 0%. How would you rank those wide receivers?
Greg Ward, 1. because I think, he started to develop a connection at the end of last year, and he ended up a little buried on the depth chart. But with all the injuries, we've seen him again kind of step up, and now they obviously have Dallas Goedert went on IR. So did you see that they took your boy Hakeem Butler, but they called him tight end?
That's all right. Hey, he's just a wide receiver playing the tight end position, baby. That's perfect. Perfect for that offense.
Might make sense why he didn't work out in Arizona. They have no use for a tight end.
Yeah, exactly.
Then I would probably take Higgins because I think that's got the best long-term value. And then Pascal, because with Campbell gone and now Pittman gone, we've seen Pascal step up and get work. We've seen him actually have good games even with some of those guys here. It's a sad commentary on T.Y. Hilton or maybe a sad commentary on Phillip Rivers. I think Pascal might be a better receiver option than Hilton right now. Then I would probably go with Miller. He's involved. It's going to be hit or miss. He's definitely not the biggest weapon in there. It does look like they actually are actively trying to get the tight ends going. They threw a lot at Gronk and Howard last week. I think that could hurt a guy like Miller. And then Ford and Inman, it really just depends on your needs. Washington is such a low-volume passing offense, and Inman's a little banged up. I don't know how good I feel about a number 2 receiver there. Miami, just about the time you feel like you want to start Ford, somebody else is going to, as we've seen. I think eventually they're going to remember that Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki play for them.
I hope so, because I have Mike Gesicki in a couple leagues, hoping that he goes off. Yeah, for me, it's pretty much the same. I think Ward, just because we've seen the injuries, it doesn't look like. Obviously, Jalen Reagor's out for a while. With Goddard going down, all they have is Ward and Ertz at the moment, and the one thing I guess you can say for Ward is that he catches the ball, so that matters. Wentz needs someone to throw the ball to, so he's going to get you. I'm not expecting him to be a wide receiver 1 or 2, but maybe a high end 3 every single week. At this point, that might be someone you need on your team with the injuries and everything going on. Higgins would be 2 for me. I do think with as bad as AJ Green has looked now 3 weeks in a row, I mean, again, we talked about that first week. He could have had a much better day if he doesn't get that PI called against him. Didn't look good against the Browns. Didn't look good again Sunday. I think it really is becoming the Tyler Boyd T. Higgins show there. Higgins has now 3 touchdowns on the year, so he's getting targeted a lot in the red zone. Obviously, mine and Dennis's guy, Auden Tate, just disappeared, unfortunately. I was really hoping to see something out of him.
And he was actually
I know. But that was just because they decided to deactivate John Ross. So, until I see him getting some run out there, like I'm not dropping him in any dynasty leagues. I still think Auden Tate has talent, but at this point, it seems like it's going to be Boyd and Higgins. So Higgins is the other guy, mostly because I want to be attached to. If I'm being honest, I think I'd actually probably go Higgins just because I want to be more attached to that Bengals offense, as weird as that is to say, than the Philly offense. As for after that, it's Scotty Miller, and then the rest, I'm going to be honest, I don't really care about. Like, I'm not, Pascal's going to have a game or 2 here. Good luck figuring out which week that's going to be and making sure he's in your lineup, unless you're forced to, and then he goes off, which is good for you. Tight ends, really not much to pick from. Jordan Aikens still available in 6% of leagues. Mo Alley Cox in 10%. Chris Herndon, is rostered in 10%. Chris Herndon rostered in 32%, and Robert Tonyan rostered in 1%. Any of these guys interest you?
If I need a tight end, Mo Alley Cox, I'm going for. I think he should be rostered, just because. I mean, Doyle played last week. I thought when Doyle came back, that was going to be the end. It looks like we thought a tight end would have some success with Rivers, and that seems to be bearing out. Cox appears to be the one that's doing it. Robert Tonyan, the way that they used him, I actually am kind of interested in him. Green Bay's receivers are a work in progress, but it looks like they are using tight ends, and Tonyan seemed to have a nice connection. There's a reason that he obviously, we thought it was going to be Sternberger. I'm somebody, I know you probably have him in a couple of leagues where I was holding Sternberger, had some hopes. He doesn't appear to be that guy right now. So that interests me. Herndon, I would expect his roster percent is going to keep sliding. Just doesn't look like they're getting him involved. There was some hope he was going to go back to kind of that rookie season flourish of a finish, but they have literally no receivers, and we're still not seeing anything. He can't seem to get any play above Braxton Berrios. So,
yeah, for me, it's probably Mo Alley Cox, Akins. I mean, I like Akins, and he's had a couple good plays, but it just seems like Houston, same thing. They're not really getting the tight ends involved. Herndon is the guy I'm picking up next waiver run after Adam Gase gets fired Thursday, because then I think he's going to shoot up the board and produce a lot. But as of right now in this Adam Gase offense, I don't want anybody, I guess, except for Braxton Berrios, because he's been wonderful. But yeah, and Tanyan, I think I need to
rank Berrios this week in deference to our friend Dennis.
Again, I should have started him last. I ended up winning my matchup anyways by 6 points, but had I started him over Devontae Adams, I wouldn't have been sweating it out as much. So
So what you're saying is wide receiver 2 then?
Wide receiver 2? What? Who? What?
Wide receiver 2.
No.
Adams.
No. I already have one person I've committed to being wide receiver 2 every week, and I can't remember who that is. I'll have to go back and rewatch yesterday's podcast. No, it was Alan Lazard. That's right, Alan Lazard. Every single week, wide receiver 2 for me moving forward. He'll always be at least at 24. Yeah, but Robert Tonyan, he is interesting to me. We've always wanted to make the Packers tight end a thing. Like, we always want to figure out who that guy's going to be.
Jimmy Graham actually was second on the team in targets last year among all receivers behind Adams. Yeah. So maybe this offensive scheme has changed a little bit. I mean, you are seeing. I did notice Packers were in a lot more 12 personnel than you're used to seeing with two tight ends out there. So that was one of the reasons I like Sternberger potentially. If he got that starting role, Jimmy Graham got quite a few targets. Even if he came off that a little bit, that could be still valuable as a tight end. It doesn't appear that he's going to be that guy, but Robert Tonyan trending that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for me, what I was going to say on Tonyan is I want to give it one more week, because I'm not sold that he'll get quite as much targets once Adams comes back. Because I do think part of the reason Graham maybe got some of the work he did last year was because we hadn't seen Lazard or MVS step up the way it seems like they have this year. So I kind of feel like they tight end might end up moving toward like that fourth option in this offense, or third option, depending on, when they're running the 12 personnel, how many, if they've got, who they have out there on the field. But I'm interested in him. I would think Tonyan is a guy you could probably wait one more week to grab. But if you need a tight end help that badly, I would not mind grabbing him, because if he's going to be the guy, it doesn't look like it's going to be Sternberger as much as we want it to, at least this year. So Tonyan is going to be the guy.
Lewis.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. All right, I think that's it. I mean, obviously, the last big news Matt mentioned a little bit ago, my guy Hakeem Butler has finally made his way back onto an NFL roster. Cannot wait. He did get picked up by the Philadelphia Eagles off the Panthers practice squad. They are moving him to tight end. I'm still excited about it. There were a lot of people who talked about that when he came out of college, that he needed to be moved to tight end. I think that's kind of the perfect place for him to go. They don't always ask their tight ends to do a lot of blocking. They use them in a very offensive kind of way. And Hakeem Butler's he's the magic man, the way he catches that ball sometimes. So I doubt he gets any play this week, but my love for Hakeem Butler has just soared back up. I might actually have to become a Philly fan now. Who knows? We'll see what happens, but keeping my options open.
Nothing is more 2020 than the Eagles, with fundamentally no receivers, signing a top wide receiving prospect from the class of 2019 at the tight end.
Yeah, I know. It sounds so bad, but I can't help but be happy, because I just love Hakeem Butler, and I want to be proven right on him. And I wish the best for him.
It's gonna be Greg Ward, JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
He can save that team, though. Trust me.
Boston
I saw what he did at
backfield and Jalen Hurts at quarterback.
I saw what he did at Iowa State. You guys aren't quite that bad yet. Just give him a shot. He's not going to do anything this week, but by week 6, wait, are we in week 4 or week 5?
We're in week 4. We're in week 4.
Okay, so we're in week 4. He's not going to play probably much in week 4, but by the time week 5 comes, just watch. He's going to get 2 touchdowns. One of them is going to be some amazing catch, and you're going to be like, how the hell did the Arizona the Cardinals let this guy go. And I'm going to be like, you're welcome. You're welcome. Because I was right. Wentz is not having a great year, though, man. I was very much in on him as well. And
I'm just kidding. I don't think Hurts is the answer.
Neither do I. I didn't think Hurts was a good quarterback. I'm just kidding. I do hope Wentz turns it around. It would actually, you know what? I'll tell you this right now. You should be very excited. Wentz is going to turn it around because I believed in him this year. He was a guy I was getting everywhere in my redraft leagues. He got dropped everywhere this weekend by me because I'm not sure he's going to turn it around, which means he's going to fucking turn it around on somebody else's team, and they're going to end up beating me the next couple of weeks and causing me to miss out on the playoffs, because that's how I feel about my fantasy teams right now. I'm shit. Again, this year it is horrible, and I hate fantasy football. All right, that's going to do it for us, though, today. Me and Matt will be back on Thursday to preview the Brett Rippin Broncos and the Sam Darnold, Adam Gase, Jets. Kitna better than Hurts today. Ooh, that's
John Kitna. He must be the quarterback coach.
Maybe.
Hey, we still have 41-year-old Josh McCown, right? Or 42-year-old
Josh. They do have McCown. Yes, he's on the practice squad.
Just charter him a comeback.
Ivan Drago making a comeback. He's going to come back and help lead the Philadelphia Eagles to that division.
Doesn't the fact that happened kind of tell you that even if Wentz was injured, they wouldn't want Hurts as their starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not surprising. He's got work to do. I'll put it that way. That's a polite way of putting it. But we'll be back on Thursday to preview that game. Possibly have Tony back with us. We'll see. I know he's been quite busy, but it'll be fun to get the gang back together. Until then, enjoy the if you guys are baseball fans, enjoy the playoff games the next couple days. Me and Matt will be back on